What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and we have news, and we have good news in my opinion. I'll start by saying, in my opinion, it's good news because we are not being linked with bad players. I would say we're getting linked, real links for once, to Ederson and Osimhen, quote unquote, again. And it's good because, like I said, it's not getting linked to Castro or Fratesi. Actually, there is an update on Fratesi when it comes to Ederson. But the big news is that Ederson and actually Osimhen are the quote unquote number one targets, real targets, not the only targets, but the main targets when it comes to fill the position in midfield and to fill the position in the attack. Those are the main options. Before we get into it, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, because even me myself cannot believe that these are real links, considering that we have been linked with players that we shouldn't be getting linked with, players that were not going to improve us. So let's start off with Ederson first, because we will talk about Osimhen, but we talked about it in the past. But Ederson, we have been linked with also in the past. I think last season we've been linked with him. Saudi clubs are really, really interested in him, which kind of complicates everything. However, Marzio is saying that he is the target right now. There's no offer at this moment in time. However, soon, actually very soon, he said, we could start opening talks with Atalanta, excuse me, to make an offer. Also because the other option, Tonali, is difficult because he doesn't want to leave Newcastle, which we already discussed at length throughout the last couple of weeks. And Fratesi is waiting to see what Chivu is going to do, and if he's going to say he's going to get a new deal, which is fantastic news because, ironically enough, Atalanta reportedly are not asking that much more than we should be paying for Fratesi, and the difference in quality, in my opinion, is day and night. Now, Ederson is an interesting one. I would say he will, especially with Saudi clubs being interested. However, not from Di Marzio, and I keep saying whatever. I know that must be a meme, but it's not from Di Marzio. It's from other sources, and it's not from now. It's from the last couple of weeks, saying that Ederson is waiting for opportunities in Europe rather than going to the Saudi league. Now, that doesn't mean anything. If the offer comes in, it's a lot of money. It is what it is. Like, it's a lot of money. But he prefers to stay in Europe. Now, I'm assuming Atalanta wants around 60, 50, 55, 50, 55 million euros. Let's split the difference. Let's say 55 million euros for Ederson. And I know what you guys are saying. Again, an Atalanta player. Again, big money. Yeah, I mean, that's the case. I mean, is he also a system player? You tell me. I love Ederson, and I know some have some issues with Ederson, but in my opinion, it will fix a lot in midfield, especially for the people who think Locatelli should be playing a bit higher up the pitch. It fixes a lot. He plays defensive midfielder. He can play centrally. I don't think he can play. Can he play? No, no. I don't think he can play in midfield alongside Thuram with Locatelli sitting. If you sign Ederson, I'm assuming, by the way, it's just an assumption, you play him as a DM and you move Locatelli and you keep Thuram. And that's just my assumption. It would make the most sense, in my opinion, if we play with the midfield we tried to play last season. And it's a replacement for Douglas Luiz, only you have a starter, and Douglas Luiz was obviously not starting. And for me, that will be an upgrade. Even though I like Douglas Luiz, Ederson has played in Serie A, and he has proven to be a very good player in Serie A. And again, not position for position with Douglas Luiz, just filling the midfield. I think Locatelli will be moved around a bit, but that will fill, in my opinion, a massive hole, especially if you move Locatelli. And I know he prefers to play on Thuram's side, and maybe you're going to need to switch Thuram, but that will figure itself out, in my opinion. But Ederson would improve us from the get-go. And I know we have quote miners in the team, I get it, but a lot of you still believe we can save quote miners, and me as well. I don't want to give up on him, also because we paid a lot of money and we're not going to recoup that. We need to make it work, especially for one more season. But if you have a midfield from Thuram, of Thuram, Locatelli, Koopmeiners, and Ederson, there are no excuses. Being a coach, you need to get the best out of that midfield, and that can be a very good midfield. I'm talking about Italy. Forget about Europe for now because we are far from that. But for Italy, that will be, in my opinion, a fantastic, should be, and must be a fantastic midfield that can dominate and should dominate games. Period. There are no excuses anymore than for anyone, for the players, for the coach, for the club, anyone, because you have a very good Serie A midfield. On paper, one of the best, and you need to make it the best, obviously, because the paper is paper. Now, again, not done deal, not close, especially with the Saudi clubs being in, but it's good to know that those are the options. Now, the flip side is, and we will talk about Osimhen in a second, if you don't get him, if you don't get a player like Ederson, Tonali is off the table, and apparently Fratesi, which a club also like, is not really possible, then it becomes sticky. What are you going to do then? Because then you get links where it's like, oof, this is not really going to improve us. This is not going to move the needle. What are we going to do? So right now, it feels like it needs to be Ederson. Otherwise, you're going to get linked with players we're not going to improve you from the get-go, and we need improvement from the get-go. So this is a massive update early on, but still a massive update. Let's move on to the second part of the video, and that's a striking position, because Marzio talked about it, and he brought up Osimhen again. And maybe a week or two ago, Giuntoli left, and everybody's like, okay, Osimhen is gone as well. And then he said, I'm not going to the Saudis, even though they were offering close to 40 million euros a season. He wants to play in Europe, and preferably in Italy, Premier League. Galatasaray is a good option because he loves it there. He just wants to play in Europe. Now, the situation is interesting because Di Marzio said if Vlahovic goes, the club wants to sign two strikers. One of them, Colomani potentially, and the other number one target is Osimhen. I still think Vlahovic is going. I believe Vlahovic needs to go. Like, it's not working for him. It's not working for us. I'm biased because, as you people know, Osimhen is, from all the players out there, Sesko, Gyökeres, Osimhen, Darwin Núñez, Retegi. For me personally, I prefer Osimhen, and I'm biased. I said it because I've watched him in the Belgium League, I watched him at Lille, and we all watched him at Napoli. So it works in this area as well. He scores a lot of goals, even for Galatasaray. I'm not one of those people saying, oh, it's for Galatasaray. If you're good, you're good. If you're talented, you're talented. And he is extremely talented in scoring goals. Yes, he misses a lot of chances, but man, if he scores 20 plus goals at the end of the season and he misses 10 quote unquote easy chances, that's a massive upgrade for us in the league. We have not had that since Ronaldo. So that's a win, and that probably will give you another 10 points at least that you probably would have missed out without a player like him. So he is my preferred option. The interesting part is, obviously, you need to move on Vlahovic. Di Marzio saying our budget for the striking position is 50 million euros. I don't believe that. I don't know if he is saying that including should we sell Vlahovic, or is that if we sell Vlahovic is 50 plus the money we sell Vlahovic for? I don't know that. The interesting part is this. Napoli agreed with, was it Al Hilal? I think it was Al Hilal, for around 75 million euros. We're not going to pay 75 million euros. We're not going to offer that. Galatasaray are not going to offer 75 million euros. Chelsea are not going to offer 7 because they didn't want to offer that amount almost last season. They're not going to do that now. That I don't have that feeling. English sources are not, are basically saying that's not going to happen. So the interesting part is Napoli have an option to extend this contract for a year, but I think he will, if Napoli extend that option, activate that option, I think his wage will go around 30 million euros average net. Napoli are not going to do that while he's on loan, because the club he's on loan at are not going to pay him 30 million euros. So that means even if Napoli extend him, they're going to need to pay him a lot of money. Now, can you lowball Napoli? You can do that. But if Osimhen is like, I want to go Juve, that's it. That's my contract situation. You know what the drill is. Figure it out. At one point, Napoli might be saying, okay, we need to accept what it is. But the danger is they will accept that on the final day of the transfer window, leaving you without the striker, for preseason, for the first 2 games of the league. You get him after the first international break or the first game in September, whatever it is going to be. That is the dangerous situation when it comes to Osimhen. Or you pay the money and you help Napoli with a massive fee, or you try to lowball him if Osimhen is like, I want to join you guys and I'm just going to wait, because that's the situation. Everybody knows what the situation is. And at one point, they're going to need to take it. Or is Laurentiis going to say, well, screw the money, and you're just going to sit out for a season, and then Osimhen is going to say, I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to Galatasaray. So it's a very difficult situation, you know. Are you going to pay the money to Napoli, what they want? Probably even more when it comes to Juve. Are you going to wait out to see if Napoli budges? Is Osimhen not going to wait? Is Chelsea coming in with a different type of offer, lower than a 70, and Napoli saying, you need to go to Chelsea because we're not selling to Juve, and Osimhen might be, well, it's still Chelsea, it's still Europe, and I'll take that. That's the difficult situation at this moment in time. So if Osimhen is the main target, being Juve, you need to move kind of fast to see what the possibilities are, especially going into preseason and the season. You need to know if it's feasible, what the timing is, what the price is, because we cannot go into the new season with just Colomani and having no striker for preseason. That's just a disaster, because that's the #1 target. Yes, he played in Serie A, but still he needs to adapt to the team, etc. You cannot have that situation. Not again. Not for main positions. That cannot happen. If you do not sign a player like Ederson on time, it's still a kind of a disaster, but you still have a starting midfield. If you don't do that with Osimhen, you don't have a starting main target, main striker. So that's a difficult situation. Anyways, still early, but at least there are some good links. I will tell you that, you know, considering the links we've had in the last couple of days, you know. So let me know in the comments what you think about Ederson, because I know opinions will be completely divided, because he's an Atalanta player and everybody's scared of signing Atalanta players. And also let me know what do you think about Osimhen and how feasible it is, considering you're going to need to pay Napoli in this case. And do you want to pay Napoli in this case? Let me know, like the video, and I will speak to you guys maybe tonight for a live. Otherwise, it's tomorrow for a daily and definitely a live.